Have you ever quit a job in an unplanned manner where one day you just snapped and said, "I've had enough of this, I'm done"? 1. Yes, I had been working for a tech company for about 3 years without taking any PTO. All of my coworkers had taken their PTO. One took 3 weeks all at once, leaving me to do her work and mine. About 2 months after that she was promoted to department manager. Fast forward 6 months. I put in for 1 week vacation, 1 month ahead of time. She said no. The department couldn't do without me for a week and told me I could take an occasional Friday off, but that was it. I looked her dead in the eye and said I quit. The look on her face was pure shock. She asked me why. I said I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I'm frazzled and exhausted and need a week to recharge. You took 3 weeks and dumped your work on me, and now you have the gall to tell me I can't have a vacation when everyone else in this department gets theirs? FCKU. And out the door I walked. 2. I didn't snap, but I did say enough was enough. In 2015, I accepted a job with CSC, a large consulting firm. When we were negotiating salary, they told me they couldn't get me all the way to where I wanted to be with salary, but they could make up for it with an annual bonus. Not being naive, I specifically asked what it took to make bonus. They said it was based on billable hours, and since I was going to be starting an 18-month project, I'd be eligible for bonus automatically the first year and all but guaranteed the following year by the way the fiscal years were established. I agreed. Fiscal year ended. Weeks went by and there was no talk of bonus. I inquired and was told numbers were still being calculated. A few weeks later, they sent out an email saying no bonuses were being paid that year. I turned in my notice. After much pleading from management and a promise to make things right, I agreed to stay. 6 months later, things still weren't right, and I received a call from my boss that any changes were months away. The following Monday, I told them I was done. They asked when my last day would be. I told them I had already worked my last day. They asked for 2 weeks notice. I told them I had given notice months ago, that my still being there was based upon their promise of them making things right, and since they didn't live up to their end of that agreement, I felt no need to extend them any additional courtesies. 3. I called my wife in the middle of the afternoon and said I have some good news and some bad news. She asked what the good news was and I told her I would be home very early for a change. I had been running a tight ship, typically one of the best performing branches in the company, and my relatively new, mind-numbingly uncreative, talentless, regional controller had been trying to assert his 1960s management style authority for some time without success. On a surprise visit, he found a coffee cup in an otherwise spotless, well-organized warehouse and came into my office to discuss the issue. There was little opportunity to progress in the company unless I killed him, but instead I handed him the keys and told him I'd be in the pub if anyone wanted me. His boss, who I had a great deal of respect for, tried to persuade me not to leave, but it was time to move on and seek my fortune elsewhere. 4. One day on the way to work I lived close to work so I always walked to work enjoying the walk with a cup of coffee and a cigarette. That day was different. The coffee didn't taste right and I didn't want my usual cig. I got to work and the manager said it's about time you got here and it was only 7:30 am. My scheduled start time was 8 am. Then she started telling me that others weren't doing their jobs. She had a stack of papers about an inch thick. It contained our daily overstock reports. Apparently they hadn't been done in over a week. She said she wanted them done ASAP. I told her to start on them when I punched in at 8 am. Well, I punched in and started working on the overstock report about 15 minutes later. The manager comes back to where I was working and said, "Are you done yet?" And I said no, so I'm under the gun to do the report that others haven't done in a week. I'm still not feeling my normal self. I went to the restroom and puked and washed my mouth out. About an hour later, the manager again asks me if I'm done. Again I said no. Manager leaves looking and acting very pissed at me. I go back to the report and again I stop and go to the restroom and puke. Only this time after puking and washing my mouth out I walk up to the manager and slam the report on the counter and I'm out of here. I quit and head to the register and check out. That's how we clocked in and out, and continue walking out without looking back. She called my name and said come back. I ignored her and went home. The manager called me the next day and asked me to come in and talk to him. I told him as long as the other manager worked there, I wasn't going back. 2 weeks later the other manager who was rude to me was transferred to another store and I went back to work. I will never work where I'm not appreciated or talked down to. 5. I worked at Moe's Southwest Grill for over a year. One of my managers always seemed to pick on me, or so I felt she did. She would threaten to write me up if I didn't do my work fast enough, if I didn't take out my piercings, which I had when I got hired, or if I didn't do things the way she wanted. She would micromanage everything I did and it felt like it was just at me. The week before I quit, one of the supervisors was crying because she was put under a lot of pressure. My manager told me that I made my supervisor cry because I took too long to do the orders. I cried out of anger cause I knew it wasn't my fault. She just wanted to blame someone. Guess who she would blame? Me. The next week, my manager told me to make chips and fill them all the way to the top, and because she was micromanaging I made more than what I was supposed to, so I started giving out full bags of chips. They're free anyways. She got mad at me for giving away the chips and I tried to tell her we had more than enough. I ended up cleaning up the salsa bar as she told me to, and ended up accidentally dropping the sour cream on the floor. After that, I cried and I knew at that exact moment that I had enough of dealing with her. I didn't show up to work ever after that. My lesson was learned: if your manager is making you cry, then leave. Micromanaging is a sign of distrust. No amount of money is worth it, ever. Most importantly, go where your work is valued and appreciated.